My in-laws keep referring to me as my husband's best friend instead of his wife, so I'm starting to think they all secretly hate me. My husband Robbie, 26M, and I, 26F, got married earlier this year. It was a beautiful day, and I felt so much love and support from both sides of our family. 2 months after our wedding day, we celebrated my birthday at my in-laws' house. It was nothing major, just a dinner and a night together with me, my husband, his mom, 50s dad, 50s and sister, 22F. That was the first night I noticed them referring to me as Robbie's best friend. After my birthday dinner, we were all sitting together in the living room, just chatting and having some drinks. That's when my sister-in-law got a phone call from a good friend of hers. When she answered the phone and her friend asked what she was doing, she replied that it was her brother's best friend's birthday. I had never heard anyone refer to me as Robbie's best friend. I am his wife, and before that, we were engaged for over 2 years. Hearing my sister-in-law refer to me like that confused me greatly. I always refer to her as my sister-in-law, and I would expect her to do the same, or maybe even call me Robbie's wife, but certainly not best friend. After my sister-in-law hung up the phone, I asked her why she referred to me that way. She did not seem at all abashed. She just said, "Well, you are best friends. And that's what mom and dad call you," referring to my mother-in-law and father-in-law. My sister-in-law and I are by no means very close, but we are nice to each other and have never had any fights. We just don't hang out outside of family functions because our personalities are pretty different. She's never made it seem like she was annoyed or mad at me. I decided to let it go that night, even though it weirded me out. But then it all happened again a few days ago, which is why I'm writing this post. My mother-in-law and I both work in the same industry, doing similar jobs but at different companies in the area. Sometimes our companies collaborate when we have clients who switch over. This week, we had that happen, and I had to visit my mother-in-law's office to help a client transition. My mother-in-law was in the office, so I stopped by to say hello. While I was there, she introduced me to her colleague, and once again, I was perplexed by how she did it. She said, "This is my son's best friend," as I was shaking hands with a colleague. I paused and awkwardly said, "I'm his wife." The colleague looked confused, but my mother-in-law continued to smile and didn't address it. Once we were alone, I asked my mother-in-law why she referred to me like that. Just like my sister-in-law, she didn't seem to think it was weird at all and said the same thing, "Well, you are best friends." The only explanation I can think of is that, in my vows to Robbie, I promised to continue being his best friend. Nobody acted like this was odd or special, and I feel like it's a pretty common thing to include in vows. So, I'm not sure why Robbie's family seems to have clung to it, unless it has nothing to do with that at all. I've spoken to Robbie about this too, and he's just as perplexed as I am. He asked his parents privately about it, and they gave him the same answer they've been giving me. It all just feels like some sort of bullying behavior to me, but I've never felt this way about them before. Are they calling me his best friend because they don't like the fact that I'm his wife? Or is it some inside joke they've been in on without me? I'm not sure what to make of it, especially because the in-laws are acting like it's not an issue when I bring it up. Yes, I'm Robbie's best friend, but I'm also his life partner and their daughter-in-law/sister-in-law. I don't know what to do. Any input or advice would be welcome. Update 2 days later. Thanks to everyone who offered helpful advice and to those who have been kind enough to share their own experiences. I'm sorry to hear that this is not exactly a unique situation. Unfortunately, for my relationship with Robbie's family, things have taken a turn for the worse. Yesterday afternoon, Robbie and I were invited over to his parents' house for dinner. I have a big project due this week at work, so I needed to stay home and finish it. I told Robbie to go catch up with his family while I ordered a pizza. Apparently, this is when Robbie decided he was going to set things straight and figure out why his mom and sister keep referring to me as his best friend. Please keep in mind that I'm telling this story based on the details my husband has given me. Robbie had a normal dinner with his folks, but they were all drinking a bit more than usual. He decided to bring over some scotch that one of his groomsmen gave him as a wedding gift, so he and his dad were especially loose. Robbie and his dad tend to have guy time together after dinner, where they hang out in his dad's garage and talk about cars and projects at home or work. This is where Robbie confronted his dad about the whole situation. From what I can gather, it took some coaxing to get this information out of my father-in-law, but eventually, he admitted to Robbie that my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and he were all involved in some sort of bet about how long Robbie's and my marriage would last. My father-in-law bet that we would stay together, while my mother-in-law bet less than 1 year, and my sister-in-law bet less than 6 months. Apparently, there was a cash prize involved. I really don't want to know how much it was. My father-in-law admitted that he believes the whole best friend moniker was a way to get under my skin and create doubts about my relationship with Robbie and his family. They thought that if they acted like it was a non-issue for long enough, it would drive me crazy and make me angry at Robbie for not intervening. Robbie says he then stormed into the house to confront his mom about everything. It ended in a screaming match between Robbie, his mom, and his dad. Robbie eventually stormed out and walked to a nearby gas station, where he called me for a ride since he couldn't drive. This morning, when I drove Robbie back to get his car, we had a horribly awkward confrontation with his parents. His mom is apparently furious with his dad for betraying the secret, and they were fighting about it all night. His dad will be staying with us in our extra bedroom for a couple of days, or until they can calm down and talk to each other again. Robbie is now set on going no contact with his mom and sister. He's angry with his father but is more willing to forgive him. Personally, I would prefer if we saw a family therapist before making any final decisions, but we are still ironing out the details. Hopefully, we can get through this with both marriages intact.